Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Kaplan. I am the CEO of PR Hacker. And if loving going viral is wrong, I don't want to be right. Today, the presentation is called Viral Velocity, How to Build Buzz at Record Speed. And this is building buzz for, the obvious application is, oh, you're like a B2C company that has this like new, sensation that's going to sweep the world and you want that to spread. That's one example. But maybe you're a B2B enterprise software company that in your own industry, you need your idea or your product to spread. That's another thing we're going to apply. Maybe you're, you market to governments. Really, can you go viral with the government? I thought they're super slow. That doesn't sound very viral. But maybe you're marketing to governments and school districts and associations. How can you get your idea, your product, your brand to spread faster? So those are all things we're going to talk about today. But because we're in Vancouver, which is a fantastic city to visit, I'm going to start off this presentation a little bit differently, and we're all going to go on a little trip. So the first stop in our trip, this voyage, is 2018 in China, and this is at Alibaba headquarters. Does anyone recognize what this is? Yell it out. No? Black Friday? Now, you're on the right track. It's not Black Friday. What is this? Singles Day. It's something called Singles Day. This is Hangzhou, China. And in 2018, Alibaba did $30.8 billion in sales in 24 hours. Yes, $30.8 billion in 24 hours. The overall holiday Singles Day did over $50 billion if you add up everyone together. And so clearly they did something right. Clearly we would like their sales. And there were some viral velocity principles at work that we're going to talk about. So that's the first stop. The second stop in our trip is the year 2014 in Seattle, Washington. This is Bill Gates dumping an ice bucket on his head. And that year in 2014, over the course of 2 months, July and August, hundreds of millions of people did this. The ALS raised $115 million in 2 months, and clearly something else was at work here. There were certain reasons why this was spreading. It made it all the way to Bill Gates and many other celebrities. And that, too, had high viral velocity. Third stop in our trip is the Gangnam neighborhood in Seoul, South Korea, where a portly singer and prolific dancer in a language that most people in the world do not speak, has a viral sensation and reaches 1 billion views faster than any other video in the world. Since then, that's been exceeded by a few. Despacito is one of them. 4 times actually faster virality than Gangnam Style. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, viral principles at work here. And the final stop in our trip is Eugene, Oregon in 1999, where there's someone, we'll call him Ben Kaplan, writes a book about how to go to college almost for free. My backstory, yes, this is me at age 21. I hope that doesn't deter anyone from actually writing the book. My backstory was I was the kid who won 24 scholarships worth $90,000, went to Harvard for free. That was my 15 minutes of fame. And I wrote and self-published a book on how to do it. No one knew about the book. We printed 5,000 copies. It was delivered to my parents' garage. And we managed to sell 2.5 million copies of the book around the world by leveraging these viral principles. Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 viral principles that connect, a massive e-commerce day in China with an ice bucket in Seattle and around the world, with a portly yet entertaining dancer in Gangnam in Seoul, South Korea, with a book, a self-published book that really has no chance of success, that becomes one of the few self-published books to be a global bestseller. And to do that, I'm going to draw upon some experiences of a few things about my company. So I have a company called PR Hacker. We're a data-driven, growth-focused, viral-optimized marketing and PR agency, San Francisco, New York, Austin, and London. And I'm going to give you some case studies and some examples from work we've done from a ton of startups. So who here is from a startup? Okay, we're in the right place. So we've launched a lot of companies from Y Combinator, Techstars, 500 startups, bootstrapped, you name it, in Silicon Valley and beyond. And then we've worked with some of the largest brands in the world like Mercedes and Budweiser. Okay, so the first principle is viral velocity. How can we spread our message at lightning speed? And the first principle is context is viral. Context is viral. So to explain what I mean by this and why all of you, no matter if you're B2C, B2B, B2G, you have a super technical topic, you have the most consumerish, easy to use topic that's the next, fad on the streets of Vancouver, whatever it is, you're in the context business. And let me explain what I mean. So this is a photo of what? Anyone? Yes. Okay, you're an overachiever. So I was going to say this is a picture of a couple making out. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, there is someone making out in Vancouver right now. They're hopefully not in this room, I don't think. Okay, but what you were talking about was this is a very famous photo, right? Because here this is a couple kissing during the 2011 Vancouver riots. So this was, in that year, one of the 3 most published photos in the world. And the question is, why? Why? Why do you think this was? It's a couple making out, right? That's not newsworthy. We don't care. Why this one? Context, right? What is the context going on here? So it's this contrast, right? There's a riot going on, and there's a couple making out. Why? Why? Right? And so, put another way, this is your product. This is your product. You didn't know it, but you are in the business of making out. What I mean by that, just to hold on, is that in the context of world events, in the context of everything going on, what you do may not be the most important thing in the world, right? There's all kinds of crazy things going on with exchange rates in China and US, and what's it going to do for the world economy? There's countries in Europe that are leaving other countries in Europe. There's a war that could break out. And so many of you have products or brands that are super important. But in the context of everything, it might not be the most important thing on a Wednesday, today, right now. So if that's your product, and we know that from the principle of virality is that context is viral, this is your job. Your job is to make this. This is what makes your product, your brand, more relevant, more timely, more interesting. So this, all the stuff around the product, can be created. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you kind of a dramatic example, and then I'll give you some very specific ones. So strategic context is what makes your product more viral. Okay? So here's an example. This is an app. A client of ours is actually one of our first clients. It's one of the case studies that made us famous, called Kloof. Think of it as Instagram for pet lovers, right? How many people here has a dog? Okay? You're very loyal, good-natured, fun. Who here has a cat? Raise your hand. Okay, you're like harder to figure out, more mysterious. You got to work for your praise. No. So, okay, pet lovers, right? So it's an Instagram app for pet lovers. And so we thought that they were a Chilean company, 0 users and 0 traction. What is the context that makes them suddenly super important? And this was our idea. The context was romance, because one of the features that was in the app was we could tell that you could see someone walking their dog around you, and we thought, hey, an application of that is like maybe you could see someone else who has a shared interest in dogs, and you could walk together, and maybe there'd be some sparks, some romance. And so that was the context. So we said, how can we position this company in this context to make them more viral? So we did a survey of 2,000 people to determine what your dog's breed reveals about you. That's kind of the nice way to put it. The more like colloquial way is like, what is the best dog to get a hot date? Okay? That was our idea. Because we thought, okay, it puts the app in a context of dating and romance where suddenly it can be consumed by a lot of people. Suddenly it's like, oh, that's interesting. They want to talk about it, right? We'll talk about what are the qualities of that idea. But, and by the way, before I go on, I should just say, in case you were wondering, results of the survey, guys, the best dog breed you could have is a Siberian Husky. You're strong, protective, and responsible. But if you have a pit bull, and I like pit bulls, by the way, but if you have a pit bull, some women think you're sketchy, slimy, and untrustworthy. And women, best dog breed you can have is a golden retriever. You're sweet and loving and caring. Does anyone have a golden retriever here? Okay, you're very sweet and loving and caring. Okay, I can tell. But if you have a Chihuahua, and I love Chihuahuas, by the way, I have, then if you have a Chihuahua, you're hot but dumb and possibly high maintenance. So let's look at the media outlets covering our story. Okay, so 200 media outlets covered our story. This is the Today Show in the US, Kloof's survey, dogs most likely to land you a date, averaged 7 million viewers, talked about for 4 minutes on air, unpaid, totally organic. The other top 2 morning shows, and yes, Good Morning America, CBS This Morning also covered it. They used the headline we pitched, CBS, what your dog says about your sex life. We'll talk about why that's a viral headline in a second. Time Magazine also ran that headline, Huffington Post Green. It went to 21 countries around the world. We made sure people had photos of Paris Hilton for our Chihuahua insights. They had 20,000 new users downloaded the app within 24 hours. That was the result, okay? So context is powerful. It took a little-known app by a company that was, not even in the US, and it dominated the US market very quickly, and they had a successful exit and sold to a large pet company a couple years after that. So let me give you a couple other examples of how to think about this, because that's pets, right? That's easy to go viral, right? Everyone likes a good pet story. But what else could we do? Let's talk about B2B. One of our clients is FreshBooks. I don't know if you guys know them, kind of a very successful startup out of Toronto. They make small and medium-sized business accounting software. And so one of the concepts for FreshBooks was, the strategic context was, their target is a lot of freelancers and small businesses. How can we relate them to the broader conversation and make them really important? So one of the things we did was we with them worked on a study because Me Too stories were being published a lot, right? And this issue of gender in the workplace, and no one had ever asked, what does that mean for freelancers? So we actually did a study to give them a broader context, and we looked at how do men and women, freelancers of the same field or the same experience level, price their services differently? Do women price them differently than men? What does that say about gender differences in the workplace? Then we went one step further because we said, this is a B2B company, so we tend to be focused on B2B applications, but we want widespread B2B that can be covered a lot of places because there's a lot of freelancers we want to reach. So we actually worked with them to say, they had data on, and one of the things we love is data to provide context, and they had data on, do people say please or thank you in their invoices? Because people were using their platform for invoices, and they could aggregate that. So we actually did a ranking, and it's a blueprint we call a Geo Ranking, where we ranked locations across the US and Canada on how polite they are. And we ranked men and women to determine the most polite men and the most polite women and the rudest men and the rudest women in the US and Canada, right? And that was a story that spread across, and you should have seen all the local TV stations that were having segments like, the guy was like trying to be really polite. Why? How are you doing today on the TV show? Could I get you some coffee, right? They were acting it out. It triggered something deeper, okay? So this can be pets, this can be accounting software, right? All the things, it's how do you build that context? But then that raises the question, which is, how do I know it's a good context, right? We can make context, we could be super relevant, but what if it's not even the right message for our brand? Do certain ideas or messages have a higher viral velocity? And that brings us to the second principle, which is ideas are viral. Ideas are viral. So what makes an idea easy to spread? Anyone, shout it out. What makes an idea easy to spread? Your friend told you something, you told someone else. What was it about it? Okay, it's easy to understand. Okay, what else? It was a story. Okay, you're like, oh, that was a cool story. Oh, I want to tell someone else that story. Okay, sure. What else? Okay, relatable. Okay, so you could kind of associate with it. Anything else? Shock. You're shocked. Oh my gosh. Okay, outliers. Why outlier? Why would you spread an outlier and not an outlier?
They stand out.
Stand out. Okay, stands out. Memorable. Okay, so all of those are good answers. I think it boils down, all of that we can summarize in 3 things. Okay? First thing, principle is simple. Why? It's actually basic physics. What I mean by that is, if the idea is complex, it's hard for someone to spread it to someone else. It takes a long time, right? If it's a simple idea, I can spread it to you in 5 seconds. If it's a complex idea, I might have to sit down with you for a couple minutes, make sure you got it. So it's just physics, right? We can't spread that idea. If we started right there on one side of the room and tried to spread this all the way across, and it took you 5 minutes to explain, by the time of this presentation, we've gotten like 4 people, right? So it's got to be simple, by definition, to have velocity, right? So constantly with our clients, right? I mean, it could be like we have one of our clients is drone mapping software, highly technical. Even though it's a technical audience, we're constantly trying to simplify. Second principle, surprising, right? Some of the outliers, as you said, shock. It was something else. Why? Because we think we've heard it all before, right? You've heard some type of presentation on marketing before, maybe something a little bit on virality. I've got to surprise you up here. I've got to deliver something that you didn't expect, right? You know, the best dog breed to get a hot date, right? To break the pattern, to pay attention. So we've got to surprise people, right? So simple's not enough. It's got to be surprising. And the third thing, it's got to be significant. It's got to be significant. So we could be simple and surprising. I mean, simple and surprising is like me going, blah! Right? That's simple and surprising. I didn't say anything of significance. So then we've actually got to relate it to our brand. I didn't mean to scare you. A few people were like, we're not paying attention. They're like, oh my gosh. Right? So we've got to be simple, surprising, and say something important. So let me give you some more examples that are more concrete. Okay? So here's the example we talked about. Your dog's breed reveals your romance potential. That's what we did for Kloof. Is it simple? Absolutely. Dogs match their owners, right? You are like your dog. Really easy to understand. Is it surprising? Absolutely. What? My dog equals my love life? This is what I've been doing wrong all this time? Right? Significant. Absolutely. Most of us want to be more attractive. And if there's somebody that says how attractive we are or someone else is, we're curious about that, right? So simple, surprising, significant equals high viral velocity. Let me give you another example. This is a proverb. A bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. How many people have heard of some version of this? Okay, a lot of people. And so let's look at our lens. This is persisted for thousands of years, and almost every culture has a proverb like this. It's highly viral. Why? Simple. It's about birds and hands, right? We understand that today. We understand that 2,000 years ago. Is it surprising? It's super surprising, right? This says a bird in hand is worth 2 over there. So that's strange math, right? I thought 2 is better than 1. I'd rather have more than less. But this says, no. 1 is better than 2. Super, revolutionary at the time. Significant. Absolutely. It's widely applicable. I can use this talking about birds and hands, but you can also be in your next marketing meeting, and you can be talking about, I really wonder, should we expand into this new market? Let's go into Southeast Asia and tap into that. There's a lot of potential customers. And then you raise your hand up. But remember, a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. Let's focus on Canada. Remember, we have that there before we go do, right? We can apply it to a marketing meeting, and we can apply it to 2,000 years ago, right? So it's highly applicable, okay? So it's lasted for 2,500 years. It transcends that because it's highly viral. Let me give you a controversial one. And then I'll give you some business examples. We're going to set aside our political hats. This is not a political presentation. This is not good or bad. But I want to analyze the Great Wall of Trump from a viral perspective for a second, because I would argue that without this concept, he would not be the US president now. When at the time, if you recall, he was in a crowded primary, there was a lot of candidates, and he was like the reality TV star, right? And so what changed in this idea, and let's look at it from a viral perspective. So about his wall, right? Is it simple? Doesn't get more simple than a wall, right? There's going to be a wall. Surprising. Absolutely. politicians don't normally talk like that, right? It wasn't normal. Like, what? It's just a wall. You don't have a 7-point plan. You just have a wall, right? It's unusual. And then third, is it significant? For what he's trying to communicate, absolutely, right? He's trying to communicate he's tough on immigration. Not only is it significant, it's symbolic, right? So it's summarizing a message in a very concrete way. Now, so it was a highly viral idea. It was really the first idea of his that caught on. And so we're not valuing whether it's good or bad. We're just saying the simple, surprising, and significant lens works for a lot of things. So how do you apply this to your product? How do you apply this to your business? A few things to think about. Whether you're looking at an email mailing, a piece of literature, your new website, this is the lens you look it through. And simply, the viral litmus test, simple. Can you understand it in less than 7 seconds? Why? Because we're too distracted, right? You've got to break through someone else. They're doing something else while listening to you, right? So you don't have, and by the way, 7 seconds isn't like, in 7 seconds I could go if A, then B, then C, then D. You don't get that. You only get if A. No leaps of logic. Second thing, is it surprising? Does it defy your expectations, right? I mean, we have a client that makes third-party enterprise support for Oracle and SAP applications, right? You don't usually talk about virality with them, but we're constantly trying to surprise people, right? So, for instance, here's an example on a B2B application. We did a whole campaign, PR, content marketing, about getting to ticket 0. And what that is it's kind of like inbox 0 when you get to no more messages. And some of these companies that have these third-party support contracts, they have like hundreds of tickets that have not been resolved for years. And we shifted all of the messaging to be like, when your ticket queue equals 0. What is that like? What does that feel like? And it was so surprising. Like, is that even possible? You can have a ticket queue 0? You're like, yes. If you're their client, you can. And so there was a more viral idea that caused them to generate leads at a faster pace. Okay? Brings us to the third principle, which is emotions are viral. And I've been hinting at this so far. We said context is viral. We talked about building something around your product or brand. We talked about the idea itself is viral, simple, surprising, and significant. But embedding under all of this has been an emotional quality that we'll talk about. And that's emotion. That doesn't just mean B2C. It's B2B, right? Because all of us deal with what are our needs, our wants. What do we need right now? And no matter who is buying your product, they have needs and wants, and that's why emotions are important. So target emotions that cause immediate action. What we're looking for are emotions that spur people to action, and that's different than being emotional. Let me give you an example of something emotional that is not the kind of emotion we want, okay? Sadness, okay? We can trigger emotion. I could tell you like a really sad story. I think I just saw the trailer. I haven't seen the movie yet, but my wife saw the book, The Art of, what is it? The Art of Racing. It's the art of, what's it called? The Art of Racing in the Rain, right? It's like, they actually tell you in the movie trailer, like, be prepared to cry. Like they're warning you, right? That's emotional. But when you have sadness, what happens? What do you guys do? Do you guys go like, tell 50 people, like, I'm sad. I'm sad. Did you hear I'm sad? No, what do you guys do? What do you do? I mean, at least me, I'm going to maybe go home privately. I'm going to, pull up the covers. I'm just going to be sad for a bit, gather my thought, right? So it doesn't cause action, doesn't cause spreading. So let's talk about emotions that cause spreading. Anyone know, what is the most shared section of the New York Times? Opinions? Okay, you like to know where people stand. Okay, what else? Not opinions. Good. What? Obituaries. Who said that? You're an extremely dark person. The dark side. Okay, a good guess. No. Anyone else? Comics? Who said comics? Comics over there? Okay. You're a little bit whimsical. You like to view things in pictures. What else? Crossword puzzle. Okay, you like something to solve. Oh, yeah, give them a puzzle. Anyone else? Not it. All good guesses, but not it. Sports, editorials. Okay. The most shared section of the New York Times is the science section. Is the most science section. It surprises people sometimes. They're like, I did not share anything in my high school biology class. This makes no sense. But it's because the science section activates something called awe. What the emotion of awe is, and that's not like, aw, really cute cat. It's like awe. It's a sense of wonderment in how we're all connected, which is a highly powerful activating emotion. So when you see a story that's like, there could be life on Mars. There is a person there, a viral marketer on Mars whose name is like Sven Kaplan on Mars. I'm like, I'm going to read that. Is that true? Could there really be? Right? So it activates awe, a sense of connection, and there's many other activating emotions. So let me show you the practical impact of this. Ever since doing that one pet campaign, we kind of use pet marketing as a laboratory for us to test things. We have, I think, 18 different pet brands as clients, so it's kind of fun for testing this. And so let me show you this. So 9 Lives cat food. How many people here have heard of Morris the cat? Okay. 9 Lives, Morris the cat is their celebrity spokes cat, okay? And they wanted to reboot Morris as a celebrity. He kind of was a celebrity in the 70s and 80s, and then they want to bring him back. So we took that challenge and we said, how could we use these viral principles to increase his audience? And so we adjusted all of the Morris content to focus on activating emotions such as awe that cause fans and followers to want to take action, to feel connected, and want to share our content organically. So we actually did not shift that much cute cat photos. They had cute cat photos, the agency before us. We did cute cat photos. We simply shifted the emotional trigger. So here's an example, and I'll do this quickly. I'll just read this for you, and it's a little bit hard to read on the screen. So this is one of our posts. They're designed to kind of look meme-like, so they're not supposed to look super polished. Morris Cat Wisdom number 2. It's called Nap to Win. And it says, you deserve a good nap. Personally, I sleep 16, 17, 18, maybe 19 hours a day, but not 20 hours. That would be excessive. Okay? So this is activating awe. Why? Does anyone know why? Why does this activate awe? It's cat sleeping. Learning. Anything else? That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay, what this is that we're not actually talking about cat wisdom here. We're laddering to wisdom for humans. So what we're actually saying, what we're delivering through a cat is, you know what? Sleep in. Hit the snooze button. Why are you waking up to do that workout? You don't have to. You deserve to just relax. Take a nap. Don't do anything, right? We're suggesting a bit of wisdom that can relate to humans, and we're changing the message of just a cute cat taking a nap. I'll give you a second example. Morris Cat Wisdom number 6, don't blame yourself, and you see the little plant is knocked over. It says, stuff happens. Things fall over. Were you the one who discovered gravity? Unless your name is Sir Isaac Newton, the answer is no. So here, we're laddering to another bit of human wisdom. We're saying, you know what? Mistakes happen. Give yourselves a break. You're too hard on yourself. Come on. So you knocked over the plant. It's not your fault. Right? So we're changing the message to insight. And let me show you what happened when we did that. So this is all organic, totally unpaid. Okay? So, and it's about a 2-month period before and after when we did the shift. It went from 7,500 typical shares to 83,000, 11x up, not changing the images, simply by changing the message. This is audience reach. People said on Facebook, you have to pay for your audience now. Not here, right? 2,600 on average organic reach went to 25,000 organic, totally unpaid. Number of likes, up 11x. Number of comments, up 7x. And this is all by activating emotions, right? So we're in the business of activating emotions, and we believe that going viral is the sum of multiple contagious emotions. So let's look at how we can do that. So who here has a B2B product that someone would consider boring? What is your product?
IT documentation.
Okay, IT documentation. That's sexy. IT documentation, right? Before, we just IT, we didn't know, we didn't have it documented, and then suddenly we're like, let's write it down. Yes. Yes. Okay, who do you sell to?
Managed service providers.
Okay, managers or supervisors?
Managed service providers.
Managed service providers. You sell to managed service providers, okay? So but who do you sell at managed service providers? Who's like the person?
Directors, CIOs.
Okay, CIO, right? You sell a CIO at a managed service provider. They probably have wants, needs, desires. I mean, personally. I mean, they want a good product. They want to have some documentation of their IT. But what are their, like, wants, needs, and desires of, like, that CIO at that company? Yeah? Security? Okay, so for the company, they want security, or they want like job security? Okay, company wants security. They might want some job security. They might want a promotion, right? They might want a promotion for being like, oh my gosh, we just had like this documentation that just like was like all over the place, just like in a room. We had paper, and like suddenly it's digitized, and we can search it, and there's faceted search and all of that. So what we were trying to do is take our end purchaser, our end customer. Typically that's called like a persona, right? But we're actually trying to ladder into what are the specific emotions that drive them, and how do we trigger them? Let me give you some examples. So we did a campaign for Citibank where we created the kickoff of financial aid season. This was to attract parents. Why? Because we knew that when people apply for college or university financial aid early, they get more than less. So we started doing a countdown clock saying, hey, if you want more money for your kids, you got to start now. Only 21 days till the kickoff of financial aid season. We created this holiday to trigger people to want to take action, right? So how can we, in all of our businesses, create emotional triggers, use time to our advantage, okay? And that's the third principle. So I want to mention a couple things, and I'll end with the most important thought of the day. So one, I have a new case study out. So if you're interested in these principles and want to delve deeper into the Alibaba Singles Day example, it's called How to Sell $30 Billion, and it's the rise of Singles Day. And so we go into, and what's remarkable about the story is that in 10 years, so they only started in 2009, and it only sold a few $1 million in 2009, and in 10 years they went from a few million to $30 billion. And what are the viral principles at work? So it's really a great example to look at. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email. We haven't officially released it yet. I'm trying to get feedback from more people. My email is ben.kaplan@prhacker.com. And also, if you'd like, you can email me. And if you have any suggestions like, hey, this is my product, it's IT documentation, I need to be able to figure out what those triggers are, we can talk about it. So that's number one. Number two, the question I'd like to ask, and because this is a viral velocity presentation, is what is the one thing you remember? What is the one thing you remember? Please tweet it at me, at Benjamin Kaplan. I'm always interested because studies show that the human brain really retains up to 3 things well. 5 things if you're like really dialed in, and if you're only partially paying attention because you're at a busy conference and you're meeting people and you got other work that is pinging you about stuff, maybe only 1 thing. So I'm curious, what is the one thing you remember from this presentation? Please tweet it at me. And finally, this is an experiment. If you want to take a picture of that, that is my LinkedIn, and that's a QR code. And so what you do is you can take a picture of it now, but if you go into your search bar, there's a little thing in LinkedIn where you can press that little icon. It pulls up either scan a code, and if you hold it up to that, you will have my LinkedIn. Okay, so take a picture of that, and let me end on the final thought of the day, and so we can go down to the next speaker. And that's this. So we've learned today that context is viral. It's not so much what your product is as what it is your product is related to. So how can we leverage that? How can we use that to our advantage? Can we have multiple contexts for multiple markets that make us more relevant? Number 2, we've learned that ideas are viral. So whatever your product, your brand, your piece of content marketing, is it simple, surprising, and significant? Can someone get the idea, even if you're in a technical subject? In under 7 seconds, they have to be able to understand the solution. So literally, show it to someone and be like, count, 1 hippopotamus, 2 hippopotamus, right? Give them a little extra time if you say hippopotamus. So, and look at, can you make your ideas more simple, surprising, significant? And 3, emotions are viral. So how can you trigger emotions in the end person you're trying to reach? That can be a B2B buyer where you're not selling your enterprise software, you're actually selling the fact that they're going to get a promotion. They're going to be able to show the board how efficient they are. They're going to be able to make their existing team feel better about what they're doing. That's what you're selling to pet marketing, right? And the final thing I'll say is that going viral, making your idea or your product more viral, is not a binary event. It's not either we went viral and like 50 million people around the world downloaded our app, and now we're sitting pretty on a Caribbean island, or like no virality, and it's 3 of us in a garage in Vancouver. It's not those 2 things. So what I would encourage you to do is instead of saying, did you go viral or not, try to increase incrementally the virality of your product and brand. Try to add more context to make it more relevant throughout the year. Increase that 10%. Go to the ideas and make it simple. 10% simpler. 12% more surprising. 14% more significant, and keep incrementing. And finally, add more emotional triggers, especially emotions with a time limitation, to increase that quotient as well. And what you'll find is that it's not lightning striking. It's not that you get really lucky and you become Gangnam Style or Despacito. It's that all of those incremental things really add up. You can give your product and your brand that kind of viral velocity, and I wish you all that kind of success.
All right.
I need some traction. You need some traction. Let's get some traction.